So on all the hype for James Gunn's new Superman movie, check out my review for that. I had a few things to say about it. I realized I'd never read any Lois Lane specific comic books, so I went on a little deep dive to rectify that. I read 3 in particular that pushed Lois to the limit in a variety of ways, but I want to really talk about one specific comic first. But let me summarize the other 2 real quick, starting with Lois Lane, Enemy of the People, a 12-issue maxi series by Greg Rucka and Mike Perkins that puts Lois Lane at the center of political intrigue, danger, and conspiracy. Targeted by a global organization and publicly scrutinized after a photo surfaces of her kissing Superman, despite the world knowing she's married to Clark Kent, Lois dives headfirst into an intense investigation. She teams up with Renee Montoya, now The Question, as well as Batman and Superman, making her dynamic with The Question one of the story's highlights, as they trade investigative strategies and even save each other's lives a few times. And my journalism jargon got updated too. In one scene, Lois teaches her source what on the record and off the record actually means. And perhaps it inspired James Gunn's hilarious reporter definition scene between Lois and Clark in the new Superman movie. You know the one. Other cool terms like unnamed source, on background, and deep background are defined between Lois and the source she's meeting with that I think journalism nerds should get a kick out of. So this blends grounded journalism with high stakes, fantastical elements. This series is a must-read for fans who want to see Lois shine at the heart of the DC universe, so check that out. Next, in Superman Lois Lane #1 by Margaret Bennett, it's a one-shot that dives into Lois and Lucy Lane's complicated family history while following the sisters as they investigate Lucy's friend's kidnapping by a shadowy organization tied to a dangerous street drug mutating people in Metropolis. Through flashbacks, we see the impact of their distant father, General Sam Lane, and their mother's early death and Lois's lingering guilt over Lucy's upbringing. A highlight of the story is the secret language that the sisters invented as army brats, which resurfaces as they reconnect during the investigation, making this a heartfelt, self-contained read that offers rare insight into Lois's past and her bond with Lucy. And I thought it was just really cool and showed how creative and intelligent Lois and Lucy were to create this amalgamated language, that only they really understood, and then it just follows them into adulthood when they're having high stakes situations, and it just showed their bond. So check that out. Again, it's just a self-contained story, secret superhero drug, monsters running all over the place, and Lois and Lucy just teaming up to get to the bottom of it. I thought it was really cool, so I think you guys should check that out. But my favorite title from my list is Lois Lane, When It Rains, God is Crying, a gripping family noir drama written in 1986 by Mindy Newell with art by Greg Morrow. Major spoiler alert for this one, and this is a mature story centered on Lane's investigation into missing and exploited children. Now I'll skip the gory details as we go, as it's still a powerful and heartfelt comic with Lois Lane guiding us every step of the way. Guys, this is the story that nearly broke Lois Lane. Let's dive in. 80s Metropolis is fully realized in Greg Morrow's incredible art style. We center on Lois Lane with her date, fresh off a breakup with Superman, until it's interrupted by police sirens. Lois snatches her date's car and makes a beeline for the Metropolis South River Pier. So after ignoring her good friend Detective Henderson's warnings, she steps into the center of the crime scene and is horrified. As officers look away in disgust, Lois looks on as a young girl's body is fished out of the Metropolis River, long dead. A grotesque parody of a Cabbage Patch doll. Detective Henderson and Lois talk in his police cruiser, and he tries to throw her off the story. She tries to put on a brave face, but Henderson sees she's affected. But neither one wants to back down. Lois feels a little guilty because such ugliness never touched her before. It was always somebody else's problem. But now, resolute, she says, well, now it is my problem, and I'm going to do something about it. So in the wee hours of the night, she runs back to the Daily Planet to write Baby Doe's story. After a fight with the city editor, because she thrives on confrontation, she settles on the story being pushed to the back pages of the paper and gets to writing. While Lois sleeps restlessly, her estranged sister Lucy returns to Metropolis for a visit, leaving the doorman at Lois's apartment stunned, because apparently Lucy is Lois's secret sister. So the next day at the Daily Planet is frustrating since Lois and Detective Henderson haven't gotten an ID on Baby Doe, not even a cause of death. The editor assigns her a series to write about missing children, but tries to partner her up, and Lois wants to fly solo on this one. Her fire is back. She's off the sidelines. As she leaves, she runs into her sister Lucy, joined by Clark Kent and Lana Lang. Clark and Lana are the new power couple, and Lois isn't a fan. She ignores them completely and just goes to leave. "I wasn't expecting anything less," Lucy says. Lois tells Lucy she wouldn't understand how important investigative journalism is and disappears down the elevator. This Lois has definitely got the fire I'm used to seeing, but I've never seen her this callous before for real. So in New York, Lois meets Mrs. Brinkley, the administrator of the child search offices. And it's here that we get some unfortunate yet key statistics on missing children in 1980s America. 2 million missing kids, 1.8 million runaways, 100,000 taken by separated parents, and some just gone for good. And what makes this such a gut punch is how Newell injects such well-researched realism into a quote-unquote Superman comic book. The figures are heartbreaking, but Newell's passionate writing is undeniable. Then Lois and Mrs. Brinkley are interrupted by a family who's just witnessed their baby girl kidnapped right out of the car. When the little boy asks if Lois can get her boyfriend Superman to help find his sister, she asserts that Mrs. Brinkley's team is their best chance of finding her. I like how Superman isn't featured in this story, except in name only. It just really adds to the realism. I mean, even the Man of Steel can't solve everything. 3 weeks later, and Lois still doesn't know Baby Doe's real name, and she hasn't published her series. But her research is lengthy. She later meets 3-year-old Patty, who was kidnapped and rescued almost a year later. But sadly, Patty's changed. Now, Lois is still learning the ropes in these cases and asks, how can Patty be different when she's back in safe and sound, right? Patty's mom, Mrs. Zielinski, says she's healthy body-wise considering all Patty's been through, but her head ain't on straight anymore. 9 months, 17 days, and 4 hours later, Patty was found in a white van just 3 miles away from her home. She suffered abuse at the hands of her captors, but she was alive. It's a heartbreaking and disturbing story, and you can tell that Mrs. Zielinski is somewhat maybe numb to some of it, and she brings up Lois's breakup with Superman out of nowhere. She's been so consumed by this nightmare with her daughter that she takes the first chance she gets to talk about anything normal. And in Metropolis, what's more normal than Superman, right? But Lois is patient, and when Mrs. Zielinski tries to introduce Patty to Lois, the child is fearful and clings to her mother for protection. So despite what Patty's been through, the bond with her mother is stronger than ever. So after the interview, Lana and Clark offer to help Lois get the Missing Children series produced on their talk show. But Lois has a full-blown meltdown. She is pissed and screaming at them. "Help?" she says. "You mean steal? You've made a habit of stealing things from me, haven't you, Lana?" Interestingly enough, in this continuity, it's strongly hinted that Lois knows Clark is Superman. She just can't prove it. And that just ramps up the tension between them even more. The horrors of the case, drama with her sister Lucy, her breakup with Superman, trying to prove herself after she botched her last story. Lois is cracking under the pressure, but at this point, she says she doesn't care who sees. "People are always looking at you, at us. We're famous, aren't we, Clark?" But she really means Superman, doesn't she? And she tears into Clark, saying, "If you really cared about people, you would have done something about this a long time ago. If you really cared about the people." Clark just calmly says he can't do anything alone, and it's unclear if he knows she's suspicious, but he does know that they can do more together than on their own. So in the final pages, Lois reflects on her investigation. What is Baby Doe's real name? The child search reports. Patty's rescue. Runaways at Haven House. Wives and children of wealthy socialites gone without a trace. And it's the latter case that shows Lois that you truly don't know what you have until it's gone. Lois's tunnel vision is about to reveal more than she realized, because on the day she finally submits the Missing Children series, no one celebrates. Every greeting falls on deaf ears, every joke ignored. It's like she's invisible, a ghost in her own office. Even Clark repays a loan to her that he didn't know was actually a gift. In this case, a book Lois gave him. "I meant for him to keep it," she says, and then he rushes out. People have finally just accepted that you can't get close to Lois Lane. But she doesn't have time to sit with this realization long before a new hot story lands on her desk. It's been announced that 2 babies have gone missing at the General Hospital, and one was just abandoned in the trash. It's horrible. Lana is triggered by the gory details of the kidnapping and drops a bombshell on Lois. It's here that we find out that in another life, Not only was Lana married, but she had a kid, and her baby was kidnapped, never to be seen again. It's no wonder Lana was so adamant to help Lois solve the case. She was a case herself once upon a time. The story was closer to home than Lois ever realized. When It Rains, God Cries ends on a bittersweet note. It's difficult to believe that no family ever comes forward to claim Baby Doe. Everyone doesn't make it home like Patty or find a place like Haven House. And as Mrs. Brinkley says, sadly, some children are gone for good. But it's not all sad. Lois has softened and extends an olive branch to Lucy before she leaves town for work. They were never very good sisters, Lucy says, so they decide to try to be friends. The Lane sisters are joined at the cemetery by Clark, Lana, and Detective Henderson, and Baby Doe is laid to rest at last. Lois Lane never found out who she was, but you can bet she'll never forget her. And that's the story that almost broke Lois Lane. When It Rains, God is Crying. It's a gut puncher, I know, but it's Lois Lane's portrayal that really hooks you. It really drew me in. It's her passion, she's messy, super flawed, relentless, complex, compelling, just all the superlatives. And I just never seen Lois Lane like that before. Like the previous stories I mentioned, like, Lois Lane, Enemy of the People, or the Lois Lane One Shot, and just other stories I've read just that had Lois in them. I'm used to noble, likable, you know what I'm saying? I mean, she's Lois Lane. But in this story, she's really emotionally stripped down. She's ducking and dodging her friends. And I know I couldn't get into everything in this story. I know it was overall spoilers, but there's still other character beats and things that show up. Perry White does make an appearance. Jimmy Olsen, I didn't get to really talk about him, but he's in it. And it's just so weird to see Lois kind of treat things so transactionally. She's in and out, blowing in with the wind, just fiending for the next story. And the story doesn't really get into why she and Lucy are estranged. It's heavily implied here that it's just because Lois is a workaholic, because it's like, wow, Lois, you just dismissed your sister just because she's not a reporter. And it really looks like Lucy is really making an effort to close the gap with Lois, and Lois just isn't having it. And Mindy Newell just peeled back a lot of layers. She's dealing with a lot of office politics. She's dealing with sexism. She's feeling gaslit by Clark because she's like, I think you're Superman. It's just a lot of mixed emotions and just a very human portrayal. And it just wrote me in. I couldn't stop turning the pages, and the comic's not perfect as much as I really, really like it. And it does come across as a PSA about missing children. But I think that's, dare I say, the charm, maybe, of the book, in that it just speaks to how Mindy Newell is just another artist that used her platform to talk about something she was passionate about. Lois Lane is the vehicle for awareness, for sparking conversations about child abductions and systemic failures across the US with this sensitive topic from the 80s to now. Like, you could really tell that she did research, that she talked to different people in law enforcement, in the medical field, in child search, you name it. It's just she left it all on the page. It's by no means exhaustive. So I just really respect and just appreciate what Mindy Newell did, while also relishing in talking about Lois Lane and Metropolis and touching on Superman and the Daily Planet staff. She's still a comic book nerd who's fired up about a topic like this. And the current Lois Lane, played by Rachel Brosnahan, is another example of using her platform. She serves on the board for Covenant House, which is a New York-based nonprofit servicing youth experiencing homelessness. And I think that's awesome. And specifically, young at-risk women have found family and educational empowerment with beautiful international organizations too, like the Grace Villa Sanctuary for Girls. That's based in Uganda, East Africa, and I've supported them since 2022. And I've dropped links for Covenant House and the Grace Villa Sanctuary for Girls in the description box if you'd like to learn more about the work these organizations do and how you can get involved if you would like to do so. Thanks for watching. I had a lot of fun reading these books and creating this video. And as hard as When It Rains, God Cries is to read, as difficult as it is to get through, the more I think about it and the more I love it and really appreciate it. What I learned about the subject matter and what I learned about Lois Lane. And these stories are just a few representations of why Lois Lane is so beloved, obviously. So if you have a favorite Lois Lane story, drop it down in the comments below. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks again.